For me, somehow, every time I got on that ice, there's a lot of bubble that came around me, and I was in that bubble. There's nothing, even now I play, and I still have that bubble around me. You hear the fans, but you kind of shut down. There's a black thing. Where am I going to go get that black thing? I want it. Where is it? What can I do to retrieve that black thing? So you kind of zoning, and there's the bubble. That's all you think of. So you don't even think about nothing else. It's just you get in that bubble. It's just a great place to be in, and you're in the moment, present moment. That's it. There's nothing else.
That was Pierre Turgeon, former first overall draft pick in the 1987 NHL Amateur Draft and owner of 1,327 career NHL points. And you are listening to the Up My Hockey podcast with Jason Podolak.
Just watch me now.
Welcome to Up My Hockey with Jason Podolak, where we deconstruct the NHL journey, discuss what it takes to make it, and have a few laughs along the way. I'm your host, Jason Podolak, a 31st overall draft pick who played 41 NHL games, but thought he was destined for 1,000. Learn from my story and those of my guests. This is a hockey podcast about reaching your potential. Hello there, and welcome back to the Up My Hockey podcast for episode 101. And the hits just keep on coming because today's guest is another gentleman that I ran into at the Islanders alumni weekend, and his name is Pierre Turgeon. A very familiar name, especially if you were a hockey fan in the late 80s through the 90s. He even played into the 2000s, but he was definitely at his best in the 90s. He was first overall in the 1987 draft, and that was a draft that saw a lot of quality players, namely Brendan Shanahan, who went second, Joe Sakic, who I believe was like 16th, and Glenn Leslie was also in that draft. There was some really, really strong players in that draft, and Pierre was the head of that class, and he did his ranking proud. I mean, he played 1,229 regular season games. He played another 109 playoff games. He was almost a point a guy in the playoffs, 97 points in 109 games, 1,327 points in 1,229 regular season games, scored 500 goals, 515 goals in the NHL. 9 times he scored 30 goals or more. 12 times he scored 20 goals or more. He had 5 different All-Star appearances. He won a Lady Byng Trophy. His accomplishments, are vast, and they're many. He also was the captain of the Montreal Canadiens. We speak about that in the interview during the 95-96 season. He was there when Patrick Waugh, the infamous Patrick Waugh scenario, when Patrick Waugh left the bench, never to be a Montreal Canadien again. He was also the assistant captain in St. Louis when he was there with the likes of Pronger and McInnes. So Pierre has been around. We didn't talk about one thing that we had in common, and now I am kicking myself for not bringing it up. But Pierre was in a trade with Kirk Muller involved, and as those of you who have followed the podcast for a while also know that I was traded for Kirk Muller. So we do have the Kirk Muller degrees of separation, similar to the Kevin Bacon degrees of separation with Hollywood. Maybe we should try and do that, because Kirk Muller was traded a couple times and played on quite a few teams, so that'd be interesting if that could become a meme. But anyways, this conversation is absolutely fantastic. Just his experience, his wisdom, his cerebral approach to the game. We talk a lot about different elements that I love to talk about. We talk about the ability to reframe and how to handle mistakes, like how to tell yourself what they mean to you. He speaks about playing in a bubble. We talk about the mindset of scoring. We talk about what it's like to be a leader, and the personalities involved, and how to be true to yourself. We talk about great coaches. He speaks to Al Arbour and what a great impact Al Arbour had on his career and on his game. There's just the conversation is 90 minutes, roughly 90 minutes. that covers his career, but we also make pit stops along the way as we usually do with so many topics that I find completely interesting. He speaks about his experience playing with some amazing players. Talks about Mario Lemieux and what his game was like, and we talk about Wayne Gretzky, and he speaks to Ray Bourque and Nicholas Lidstrom and their ability to take away time and space. And we also talk about offense from a philosophical perspective and from a concept perspective about like what are we trying to do when we have the puck. There's just a lot in this conversation. I mean, it's super gracious that the Islanders were able to put Pierre and I in the same room with that amazing alumni weekend that I spoke about last week with Dwayne Sutter. If you were able to hear that great conversation I had with Dwayne, I was able to meet Pierre. We had some free space at where we were sitting at the first night event, and I shook his hand and I asked him if he'd be willing to come on my program. And again, there was no other connection there as far as Pierre and I were concerned. We never played with each other. I was never in a camp or in a dressing room with him, but because we were in the same room as Islander alumni, he was gracious enough to shake my hand and to share his number, and here we are a week later roughly, and he's a guest on the podcast. So one thing we do talk about is Pierre's accolades, meaning the 500 goals, the 327 points. And I point out at the very end of the discussion that I found this little excerpt that he has the most points in NHL history to not be in the Hall of Fame. That's such a crazy stat line, isn't it? Like, to be that guy. To be the guy with the most points to ever not be inducted. And now he's not like he can't be inducted. He still can be. But at this point in time, he has not been inducted into the Hall of Fame. So that's the last question that I ask him. So Pierre, the gentleman that he is, you'll have to stick around, I guess, to the end of the interview to hear how he responds to that. But I do think that's a very interesting stat to have. He played, I should go over a little bit more just so some of the younger players and some of you listeners who may not be as familiar with him as I am, but he was drafted originally by Buffalo, and he played 5 years there, and then he got traded to the New York Islanders in the Pat LaFontaine trade, and then he ended up going over to Montreal with the Canadiens. I believe that was in the Kirk Muller trade. I'm just going to check now. Yes, traded from the New York Islanders to the Montreal Canadiens, and that was for Kirk Muller. And then he got traded from the Canadiens to the St. Louis Blues. He talks about that and how he requested that trade, but 3 blockbuster trades really he was involved in. And then he went to St. Louis. He said that trade really extended his career. He was 5 seasons in St. Louis, then went to Dallas, and then ended up in Colorado. His best season was 58 goals, 74 assists for 132 points in 83 games. That was with the New York Islanders in the 92-93 season. And he won the Lady Byng Award that year as well. So, again, fantastic junior, 154 points in 58 games the year he got drafted first overall. Oh, we also talk about the World Junior Championship where he was there when the lights went out with the brawl against Russia. So we get his take as a 17-year-old in that tournament. And yeah, I mean, just an honor to have such an accomplished NHL veteran on the show. And I know you're going to love the conversation. He has a very interesting perspective on things. He's eloquent in his delivery and thoughtful in his approach. And I bring you my conversation with Pierre Turgeon. All right, episode 101 is now on, and we have former first overall pick Pierre Turgeon on the Up My Hockey podcast. Welcome, Pierre.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, I appreciate you coming on. We just met again for, I guess, the second time because we met last year as well at the alumni thing. But the Islanders alumni weekend, I think we should probably just discuss that a little bit. What does the Islanders mean to you in your history, rich history in hockey, and what does that weekend mean for you?
Well, it is a process. You look at your career, what you've done, what you achieve, and you go through the team you played for, and the memories you have there, and there's great memories. And then going back, as you know, I mean, we go back, and all of a sudden there's guys that you meet that we met there, and next thing you know is you're reconnecting. And which great about the hockey world, and it's a great world to be a part of, is you seen these guys, you see older guys, younger guys, middle guys you played with, you guys you played against, and somehow there's a connection, and that's a great connection to have in life. And I just love to be a part of that world.
And kudos to the Islanders, right? I mean, you played on. I played on 4 different teams, but not nearly as
Mhm.
long as you did. And none of the Islanders, like none of the teams that I play on, like really have much going on for the alumni. For the Islanders to do that, is that your experience? That's a pretty special weekend, just in the NHL world itself.
100%. I mean, you go there, and the great thing about all this, the owners are great. The fans are great. And there's one thing, it starts with the team and the owner that brings everyone back together, and that's where it starts. And for many years it wasn't like this. In the last couple of years it changed, and that's why we were able to just get together and have those weekends. And it's pretty special when you have the 50th anniversary of a team, and just being a part of it. What a history. So it's great. There was a lot of fun. And I love playing. We went on the ice on that weekend. So we played against the Rangers, obviously, on Sunday, and just can't get him back on the ice. I just love being out there. And it was against the Rangers, obviously, and it doesn't matter who we win. It's about being out there, and you want to keep that game close enough so where the fans are happy. That's what it comes down to. It's about the fans.
Kaber was bragging to me about his hat trick. Was Kaber on fire that night?
Yeah, he was. I mean, there's a lot. Well, Nick, think about this. We scored 11 goals. So yeah, there's a lot of goals. And then the other team, they scored, 9, so yeah. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of goals, and it's just, and you just want to make it fun. And I think we did that. So it was cool.
With those alumni games, I didn't go actually. My wife and my son, we headed into New York City and
Sure.
did some Broadway thing and did that whole thing. But as a player, I mean, I still like to get out there too. It seems like the goalies prefer not to play, like once they get older. Who are the goalies that like were there alumni goalies?
There's 2 guys that they're not alumni. They're guys that paid and just be part of it for charity. And it was fun. And these guys they're happy to be there. And I feel bad for them because it's just it's open. Obviously you get scored 10 goals against us.
Yeah.
It's so you're right. A lot of alumni don't want to go in that. And think about butterfly all the time and getting up and going down. And these guys don't want to be a goalie anymore. A lot of guys want to be forward. I get that. So I mean, the older you get too, it's already hard to be a goalie. I can't even imagine being 50, 60, or 70 and just be trying to be a goalie still.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's going to be hard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's something that I picked up actually. I retired pretty young, like at 30, and
Okay.
still had some legs left, but for whatever reasons, I left the game. But when I came back, I still wanted to play a little bit here locally, and that sounds like the same type of game that you got going on now in Florida there, right? But I was still a little too fresh and a little too young for kind of the pace here.
Yeah.
And so I was always interested in goaltending though. So I bought all the gear and I
Are you
became
serious?
a goaltender for like 3 years, 4 years. So I did the opposite. I retired and then went and went in between the pipes and it is. I mean, it's a different beast in there, especially for like how your body has to move and what it's required to do. And the hips and the lower back were always a little bit sore when I left the ice, but
Oh,
it was fun.
it's not like it used to be. I mean, now they're butterfly all the time. Every shot, they go across, they slide. They're just, it's so technical. I mean, it's just a hard place to be. We used to see 2-pad slide all the time. We used to be a stand-up goalie. Guys never go and went down, in our time, beginning of the time. So now you could see these guys are athletes, obviously like the players, but, being a goalie, you got to start young age just to be able to do that butterfly and try to cover as much as you can the bottom. Wow.
Yeah.
So I can't even imagine for you at 30 trying to be, were you a butterfly or you were a 2-pad
No, I was.
slide?
I was kind of one of those Gumby kind of guys. Like I was stretching in the room before games all the time, and I had the loose
Okay.
groin. So yeah, I was kind of built for it. So it wasn't too
Wow. Impressive. Wow.
But yeah, I mean, I'm just looking back on your career. I mean, just touching on the Islanders again. There's a couple pretty big moments. Well, one for you with the 132-point season and the 58 goal campaign, and also the Lady Byng, right? That came that year. So I
Yeah.
mean, obviously a really special year in your storied career. So maybe just walk us through. I mean, what was sometimes there's just those years, right? The chemistry just works,
Oh,
or I mean,
sure.
things are just rolling. Like what was that season like for you? And walk us through it.
So I think the biggest, the biggest thing is if you rewind, we got traded. Pat LaFontaine went to Buffalo, and Dave McCoy, myself, Benoit Hope, Newey Coop flew. I mean, we got traded in the same trade to Long Island. And the same day we had Steve Thomas and Adam Creighton that was in that, and Dean from Chicago. So we had 6 guys coming in, and then Randy. It was Patty, and I'm trying to look. Is it Muller? So anyway, another guy got it. I should know this, but I'm blanking. Anyway, so they made the trade, and it actually it turned around the team, and I think in that puzzle, everyone had something to do with the success we had when we were there. So in '93. Obviously we built on something the first couple of years, and Al Arbor as a coach was incredible. To me, he was a dad to everyone, and he could actually, he had the skill of adjusting to every individually the players to make sure they were at their best, and that's the skill. I mean, it's obviously you push different buttons to have the result from players, and some guys got to be hard, some guys got to be positive, some guys you just, and he was able to. I mean, he was a coach for so many years, and he had that vibe, and that year was just everyone was. We had a good year, and coming down to the end against Pittsburgh. I mean, we won against Washington, and then we went against Pittsburgh, and which is Lemieux, Jagger, and all these guys. We weren't supposed to beat them, And I always remember that meeting we had. He goes, "You know what?" Al says, "We have nothing to lose. I mean, we're the underdog here, and I believe we're going to win." He goes, "Yeah," and then we're all looking at Al. Sure, we will, So, but at the end of the day, he came out to Game 7 OT. David Volek scored the pass from Ray Ferraro. But did we believe that at the beginning? No, but he made us believe that we could do it. So he had a lot to do with our season, and even my season personally. He had a huge impact on my career, So that year was just, like you said, some years are just going that way, and it's just, you go in front of the net, and the puck hits your butt and goes in. So, and those things, you take it, So it's one of those years you just, and that year also, I finished 8th. So there was a lot of players having an incredible season too. So it was kind of I had a good season, but at the same time, there was a lot of players. For some reason, had more stats than different seasons. So,
Well, you got the well, first of all, you're too humble and too gracious, because I don't think too many went off your butt out of the 58. You were definitely a guy that was Dave Anderchuk's job, stand in front of the net and put those goals in Buffalo, right?
He was unbelievable. I gotta say, Dave Anderchuk he was doing that, and I played with him a couple of years, and he could find that place though. He in front of the net. He could find that little hole that he needed to put that puck right there, and he was incredible. So it was a very, those were fun years also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd love to talk about Al Arbor, because I'm really, I probably haven't listened to any episodes, but the whole philosophy around Up My Hockey is how to be our best, right? And how to help players, right. Find their way on their journey, whatever it is they want to achieve. And there's oftentimes on the journey, right? And you've played for enough guys where there's coaches that work and really help, and there's coaches that sometimes don't,
Sure.
And it's good to talk about both sides of it. And obviously you found somebody there with Al Arbor that was really beneficial to you in the way that he was able to work with you. And what do you think was that secret sauce there with Al? You mentioned him able to push buttons and treat everybody individually, and was kind of like a father figure. Can you maybe talk about that a little bit more?
Well, let's say, I always remember that it was a time that I was struggling during the year. For so many games that I wasn't scoring, and he calls me in his office, and he goes, "How you doing?" And I thought I was like, he's going to give me either, He goes, I don't really mind, and I don't really care if you score or you have it points. I want you to focus on small areas of the game. Because at the end of the day, those smaller areas of the game, that's what creates scoring chance. It's winning the battles around there's a puck there. It's yours. There's two guys battling for it. Come out with it. So put your shoulder down and go attack. Have the mentality. You're going to come out with it. So these things that you learn from coaching staff, from him especially, made a big impact. And next thing he knows, I was focusing on chipping the puck out when it was time to chip it in. Bad checking hard, stopping in front of that net for rebound. Don't slide on the side. And when there's a battle around the board, it's yours. That's what you got to come out with. So the attitude you got to have is so that creates scoring chance. That creates someone that's going to score. So you're going to score. So it started, all of a sudden it changed. And in my mentality after that, I had skill starting before this, but the mentality of battling around the boards, really coming out with the puck and do the small little things of the game, that helped me personally to grow. So I really learned a lot from Al Arbor in small situations. So give you an example too. You're in your zone, you're making a pass across, it gets intercepted, it goes to your side, they score. So what's your process in your mind when you go back to the bench? Obviously, you made a mistake. So is it going to bother you? Are you going to be affected for the rest of the game? So you got to be able to process this. And he was explaining this. Is it in process, learn from it, move on, next shift. Don't even think about what happened after that. Just learn from it. That's it. And all of a sudden, you just got to go out there and just be fresh. Make sure you're moving forward. It's all about what's in front of you. It's not about what's behind you. Can't do anything. Can't change anything. It's behind. So that the smaller things like this, I felt like he was able to get in everyone's mind. And for me, it was those small things that made a big difference just to the way I approached the game and the way I learned from him. So.
That's awesome. I mean, to me, that speaks to two things. One, he was able to provide that feedback or those suggestions in a way that you bought in with, right?
Yeah,
Which I think
sure.
is a skill, right? Like you
100%.
definitely he had to craft that in some way that you were like, yeah, I believe this and I believe this is going to help me. So good. He was probably a technician of that, but that also speaks volumes to you that you were able to receive that information and be able to use it. Because sometimes guys are resistant to that. Was there a method to that madness or a strategy that you can look back on now? Like, how did he approach you about making you, realize that there was value in the board battles?
It's just because all of a sudden I was not doing well for a couple of games, 10 games or something, and not scoring for 10 games, which is a long time. And next thing you know, he's telling you that it doesn't matter, I want you to focus on small things. That's so, and all of a sudden you're instead of being tight, instead of being afraid to make a mistake or being, see that net, a small net instead of being a bigger net. Because when you shoot, there's two ways to think about it. Like, you shoot to score, you shoot to shoot. So I mean, but I think you learn the small areas of the game, but you go in front of that net, then you get confidence, you get one, you get five, so it opens the gate. And somehow he was able to transmit this to, and you talk to all the players that played for him, they all think the same. It's, so he made a huge impact on, I remember Derek King. He's coaching. I think he's assistant coach in Chicago now. He coached for Chicago and when he actually was AHL, I was able to. Dominic, my son, was playing there, so I was able after the game to say hi to him and I asked him a question. I said, "So who was the biggest impact in your game? Well, who did you learn the most to be the coach for what you're at today?" And he looks at me, he goes, everything from Al Arbor. So that tells you a lot. I mean, he had a huge impact and a lot of players, and the way he coached now and the way he thinks comes from a lot from Al Arbor. So it's pretty amazing.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
I like how he took the opportunity, like waited for maybe you to have like a downturn, or a stumble. And then obviously now you're looking for answers too, right? Like you probably wouldn't have approached you when you're on a heater, but approaches you, hey, he might be looking for some answers. Here's some information that you can do what you want with. And you grabbed it. I want to revert back to the part where you're talking about mistakes. And I think this is a super interesting one because that's what I do now with players. in the mental performance space, and these intangibles, like these ways to process things, as you use that word, really do matter. Like, but when you're on the
100%.
ice, what does a mistake mean, right? So like there's the personal side of that, which I think is important, right? You have to have the growth mindset around a mistake. You need to be able to understand what you needed to learn from that mistake, so you try not to do it again the next time, right? And then
Yep.
move forward.
Yep.
However, I want to throw back at you the idea of when you're in a situation, and some of these guys that I deal with are in there, and many players on many teams are, when you're in the fourth, third line role, and that one mistake may cost you your shift. Like when you're in a situation where you're going to go back out there, it's a little easier to pick up this kind of, lexicon, right? Yeah, okay, it's this, like, I'll let it go, and I'm gonna go back out and have another shift, but you might not get another shift. So
You have a great point.
what would be your advice on that for players in that situation?
I think you gotta know your role. We had different players, obviously, and Mick Vukota. So Mick Vukota was on the fourth line. He knew that if he would have made a mistake, but he stayed on his role, and he stayed. You have to, you might not play 20 shift. You might play 4 shift, 3 shift, and those 3 or 4 shifts are going to be extremely important for the team also. So he was able to communicate that to him. And I think obviously Al was very good with communicating, even with the fourth liner and the third liner, and just the fact that they were a big piece of our team, because at the end of the day, you might have 3 or 4 shifts. They're a big shift for us. And you're right, though. If you do a mistake, if Mick Vukota turns it over once or twice, there's a big chance he's not going to see the ice again. You're right. It's just, but he realized it. He didn't try to make a play. It was a chip, and I'm going to go work.
Yeah.
So, there's different, today might be a little different with the players, because the fourth line they're skaters. They're creative. They could play hockey, and Mick could play hockey, but he does something he did. There's something very, very good. He was tough.
Yeah.
And he wasn't afraid. And I remember between the period, first or second period, he used to walk right in and say, "Turge, are you okay? Can I do something? Can I help?" I knew what it meant. Like, obviously, I said, "No, everything is okay. Stay out of the box. We just want to stay out of the bed. We just don't want to be in trouble." So, but he took his role like an incredible role, and he did a huge difference for us to be successful. And I have a lot of respect for what a job. Not an easy job, I'll tell you. Crazy. So.
No, man. Great shout out there. Gone really is that era, or at least of that specified type of role. That was completely enforcer. There are definitely still some tough guys in the league that police a little bit, but it's not quite the same as it was. In that era, gentlemen like yourself, if you didn't have that guy in the team to watch your back, guys would take advantage of you.
100%.
Yeah,
100%. You are right. So that piece of puzzle was important to our team, and I played with Tony Twist. Tony Twist was the same. What a tough guy, and and he did his job well, and he had a career out of it. Yeah. And again, it's a lot of respect, because it's a tough job to do, and you don't know. Sometimes it's one punch, and and you might be in trouble. So it's a lot of respect for these guys, and I was grateful to have those guys around our team for sure.
That's awesome. All right, going to take a short break here from the discussion with Pierre Turgeon to share a testimonial with you. This is something that I don't do enough of. It's something I want to do more of, is just share the success stories from real-world players or real-world parents and what they've experienced with the program, whether working as an individual through the program in the Peak Potential Hockey Project or in a team setting working through the Peak Potential Hockey Project. And this comes from a recent graduate. It was one cohort ago, and he's a 16-year-old captain of his U17 AAA team. So an accomplished player that was just looking for a little bit more. He thought that maybe he should have made the U18 team. He was having a successful campaign where he was at, but he just wanted to explore. He wanted to explore what mindset could do for him, and kind of came in, honestly, to the program not super willing. Like, it was something that his parents talked to him about. He was a little bit reluctant, but then he he joined and was willing to join, and then was willing to go all in once he got inside, which is generally the case once players get inside the program. And we found out in our discussions about mindset and, fixed versus growth and what that means and what the perspectives mean, that he actually came into the program with quite a few areas where he had a fixed mindset towards things. And so as we worked through the program and as we worked through some of the assignments, he gained new connections, he grew new perspectives, and he was able to transfer these things into his practice, into his practice on the ice, his practice habits away from the rink, and also into his gameplay. And he left the program on an all-time high, season high point streak, playing the best hockey of the season, and more importantly, was really empowered and proud of the steps that he had made, which is always the best part for me. Obviously, I want the success to transfer into on-ice performance. That's what these players are most concerned about. But the ability to leave something better, to feel like you're better, to feel that you now have tools, that you are empowered to make new choices, and that you were able to put in the work that has allowed you to come out better on the other side. These are the kind of the more intangible results that I really, really love, because that's what he's going to take with him throughout this, the rest of his life, quite frankly. And I just want to share a message that his mom wrote me. And she said, first and foremost, I want to tell you how happy we are with your program. Luke can be quite aloof, so I'm not sure how he came across during the sessions, but he took away so much from it. He had a bad pass one game, which resulted in a goal against. And after the game, he told his dad that he used the 3 R's. The 3 R's is a technique that I teach inside the course, how to deal with a mistake. He used the 3 R's to get his head back into the game for the next shift. It's not easy to get through to 16-year-olds on mental strength, and your delivery was spot on to really engage them. The mom ended up going on to be so impressed with the program and the success that Luke experienced that she gave my contact information and was willing to share the success story with their GM of the program, so the entire team would be able to take it the next season. So I really do appreciate those testimonials. I should do more of sharing, more stories like Luke, a 16-year-old who wants to be a junior player and who wants to play D1 and has these big goals and dreams and steps into a 4-week program and has these amazing results, results that not only he feels and his coach sees, but his parents also are able to see and to get excited about. So again, there's no ideal player for the program. If you want to be better, if you want to explore the competitive advantage that mindset can give you, and you're like most people out there, not sure where to start or how to do it, you're in the right spot. Up My Hockey is that place, and the Peak Potential Project is now a proven commodity that is over 250 graduates, and all with their own story of how successful it has been for them. So if you're interested in the next cohort, or if you're interested in having your team or your association or your prep school, whatever the case may be, get involved in mindset and get involved in mental strength and how to build confidence, then Up My Hockey is the place for you. And you can find that at www.upmyhockey.com. I am now building my schedule for the fall of 23-24 season, and would love to get your association involved or your team involved if you're a general manager or a coach, and get you on the list. If you are an individual player, I plan to run the next guided mission probably towards the beginning of April, so you can also put in your name on the wait list or just get enrolled right now for that. Lots of ways to get involved, but I do strongly suggest that you start taking an interest, a curious interest, and maybe a leap of faith for some of you, and get involved in training your mind. Get involved in your personal development and see how that is going to affect your play and your results on the ice. Now let's get back to my conversation with Pierre Turgeon. Like I said, this is 101 episodes, so I've had some really big names, some guys from my era, and like Jerome McGinley's been on, and
Cool.
we've had Big Redden on, and so
Cool.
I've had some guys, but like it's funny, it's not funny, but we just talk about opportunity a lot here too, right? And like how that works, and that the league's a tough league to get into, and it's even tougher when you're in that spot where the mistake really does matter, that they're more watching for the mistake than they're watching for the right play, let's say, like Wade came to mind because he was second overall. He went to Ottawa, and he said that he was essentially, because of injuries too, they essentially told him, like, no matter what you do, you are going to go play again. Like we want you to develop here in this league. Like, not many guys get that much rope, but oh my goodness, like, what a different way to play when you're not necessarily concerned about, making that turnover or costing something, right? Pushing that puck up. And that's kind of been the thing. It seems like the guys that do, like, which is why the draft placing and all these things kind of come into effect, because you get a little bit more chance, and that chance is sometimes very helpful. I'm just going to bring that into the idea of you now being first overall, and like, what an amazing, like, how many guys in the history of the game can say that they were first overall, and your brother went second. So maybe we should talk about that too. But because your brother was a little bit before you, I think 3 or 4 years, if I remember correctly.
4 years.
So you were able to watch that. You were able to watch him obviously be a great player, and you're able to watch him get scouted in the draft and all that. And how did that? How did him walking in front of you like that help you for your journey through junior?
So this is funny because so I'm going to rewind this. When my brother was young, he wanted to play hockey. My dad was a lumberjack, so that's what he did for a living. And my mom used to clean house, and a lot of respect for my parents. And they actually didn't know anything about hockey. So my brother, actually 4.5 years older than me, went to see my dad and asked him, "Can I play hockey?" My dad goes, "Too tough. It's too rough. He's a lumberjack." So it's crazy. So you can't do this. And then he goes, "Well, I'd like to. Well, it's too rough." And so he actually goes to see my uncle, and he actually asked him $5 so he could put his name on the list to go. So he went to the rink, actually put his name on it. He came back, and all my cousin had full of equipment, older equipment. So he made a bag of it. Came back to my dad. He goes, "I want to play hockey." So that's how it started, really. So my dad didn't want to, and he actually convinced my dad that he wanted to play hockey. Yeah. So, and then the more I moved forward, obviously, I didn't realize. For me, I had the passion of being on the ice. I wanted to play hockey, so I just wanted to be outside, play hockey. I just didn't know about money. I didn't know about things. I didn't know. I just didn't know. I just wanted to play hockey. And every weekend I used to go to the rink early in the morning. I brought my lunch and dinner, and I asked every team to practice with them. I stayed at the rink all day. That was my Saturday and Sunday. That's all I wanted to do. Didn't go out. I went back to bed at 7. I was done, tired. Next day was cool, and that's all I did. And so my brother actually had a huge impact on my career because I was looking up to him. And when he made the NHL, he played for Hartford. I was 14 at that point. I'm like, whoa, okay. So I just didn't. And then I was playing midget AAA, and I just didn't realize what it was. I just wanted to play. And next thing you know, is the more I move forward, and this is material, but that's when it hit me. My brother came back after his first year. He came back with a Porsche 944. So he drives back, and I'm looking at this car. I'm like, okay. I said, "You play hockey, you could get things like this." And it's just material. And, it's just material. And all of a sudden I go, okay, now I really want to play hockey. I didn't understand until it hit me when I was 15 years old, I think, 15, 16. And next thing you know, he had a huge impact, and I saw something that it's material, but it made it different on the way I was thinking about it. I want to play hockey now. So, yeah.
That is fantastic. What was that? I mean, you mentioned about kind of living at the rink and just having this passion for it, and that is definitely a common theme, throughout guys who get to the NHL. I mean, you have to love what you do, or else it's not you're not going to get there, right? Because there's going to be enough times throughout that journey where there's going to be reasons to quit. Like definitely reasons to quit. What was your biggest point? Like, if you were to remember one point, maybe Well, whether it be minor hockey or professional, like what was the thing that stands out as far as the biggest point of adversity for you? That was the toughest thing to get through.
Uh, I I I think the biggest thing is, I mean, there's been adversity in youth hockey and stuff, but the biggest thing what people don't realize is, I think the step from junior to the NHL is humongous. Like it's there's only so many players. We have 700 something players that play in the NHL every year, and that's it in the world. Like it's hard to make it. So the first couple months, and that's what you were saying earlier. Some guys have more breaks and they have more opportunity, and so the first 3 or 4 months, it was actually I was playing in Buffalo. The ice was a little smaller. Everything was quick. I played with Clark Gillies, Mark Napier, Lindy Ruff, Mike Ramsey. I'm 18 coming in. I barely could speak the language. I can't speak English at all, zero. I can't even say hi. How you doing? It's how bad. But the first 3 months, the ice was smaller. I had the puck. The puck was gone. It was like, whoa, okay, what's going on here? So even I was drafted, like you said, number one, and I had more opportunity to actually stay, and they really believed in me. So after a couple months, it clicked, and all of a sudden I said, I belong here. I'm going to be okay. But it took a couple months to really feel like the speed of the game, the size of the rink, the strength of the game, the guys are stronger. Everything was just now you're going from boys to man, like a big difference, and it was a big difference. So the adjustment was, and Jeremy was incredible. He was the manager there, and we want you to grow through all this, and he did. And that first year was my first couple months. I learned a lot, and I learned a lot after that. But it was really a eye opener that it's the NHL. It's fast, it's strong, and it's the best thing in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, and there is not only you kind of touched on it. I mean, the adjustment is not only physical. I mean, it's definitely mental. The speed of the game and
Sure.
the belief system, which I really like the fact that you pointed that out. That I belong here. To get
Yeah.
to that point where you can actually look in the mirror and say, "This is where I'm supposed to be." That's a really seminal moment, right? Like that. Yes, I have arrived, and I'm supposed to be here.
Yeah.
And not everyone, again, I can speak to that from the other side of it. I mean, my rookie year, I was 20 years old, left junior after 3 years or 4 years at 19. And I was in the third, fourth line role, which was completely fine. That was the way Florida wanted to bring me up, to allow me to grow into it. But when you're playing, I don't know if I might have only played probably 15 minutes a couple times. And like, at that point, you're still like eyes like this with everybody you're playing against, right? Like, I was on the ice with Mario Lemieux, my boyhood idol, right? Like, are you kidding me? Like, that's crazy, So I never really had the chance to get through that initial awe factor, right? Of like, yeah, and again, I mean, opportunity is such an interesting thing because, you never know how many you're going to get, right? And now looking back on it, I wish I would have maybe adjusted a little bit quicker, or at least told myself to adjust a little quicker, because I didn't know the runway was going to be so short. But still, amazing that the belief aspect, I think, is so important, and it has to come not only from you. I'm sure it had to come from you, but like that conversation with the GM had to matter too, right? Like what your teammates
100%.
are telling you matters as well, right? Like what your environment's saying.
Yeah, I think it's got a lot to do with it's a learning process. 18, you're young, too, you're coming in, and there's always you gotta have an open mind of learning. You gotta have an open mind of it's never perfect. You're still gonna learn. I'll tell you a story after that, but later on in my career in St. Louis, I learned something else when I was 27. I'm like, okay, again. So, but anyway, before I get there, it's you're right. It's just you need to have the people that believes in you, and then you got to have the skill. You got to have the timing. There's a lot that comes in play, But for me, somehow. Every time I got on that ice, there's a lot of bubble that came around me, and I was in that bubble. There's nothing. Even now, I play, and I'm still have that bubble around me. It's not about you kind of shut down. You hear the fans, but you kind of shut down. There's a black thing. Where am I going to go get that black thing? I want it. Where is it? What can I do to retrieve that black thing? So you kind of zoning, and there's the bubble. That's all you think of. So you don't even think about nothing else. It's just you get in that bubble. It's just a great place to be in, and you're in the moment, present moment. That's it. There's nothing else. And so it's but you learn these things with experience, obviously, talking with Al Arbor and but it's you do need to have good people around you. You need to have good teammates that supports you and advise you, and there's a lot of things that you learn from that when you're young, for sure.
That bubble is a really cool way to think about it. Like some people have called it the zone, right? Where
Yeah.
you're kind of you're just there is nothing else, and time sort of slows down even a little bit. Like things happen
You're right.
in your head slower than they're actually happening on the ice. Was there anything you said that you learned that over time? Was there anything that you did specifically from a preparation standpoint, or on the ice between shifts, or any of that would help you get into that zone?
I think I had that zone when I was young too, just because every time there's a puck or you get in that ice, there's nothing else to think of. You're just in the moment, So I was young and I had that right away, and you learn after that when things are not going well, that's not going to go your ways. There's what do you do with these things, and that you learn with experience, and that you learn with the people you're with, or from coaching staff, from teammates, and so. But when you're young, I was just every time I get on the again now I get on the ice, and I still play twice a week. I love it. It's a workout, and I'm not going to the gym, just being closed down, four walls, and I go out and I'm having fun and I bubble again. I do it. I go up, I just focus and I have fun with it. I just love it. It's just, I think it's the best game. It is the best game for sure. So but you do learn, and like I said earlier, with the people you played with and the coaching staff and timing, be at the right place, right time, but that bubble is a place. It's a nice place to be in. But I had that when I was playing outside, having fun.
Right.
I bubble again.
Yeah.
I was in that bubble. So
good for you.
yeah.
I mean, that's it is something that I try and teach, because a lot of times, and I'm sure you see it. You can see it in the NHL, even like when guys are caught in indecision, right? When they're trying to think on the ice, right? Like, and that never usually results in anything positive, right? So it's like trying to give the inputs prior to sometimes the game, like the preparation aspect, whether it be visualization the night before or whatever moments are happening. So when you're in the game, in the moment, you're now not having to make these decisions, right? They've kind of already been made. You're just reading, you're taking in information, and you're responding to them in a natural way. Which, I mean, now I'm jumping back to the whole mistake thing, because then you see some of those kids or the prospects are having a hard time, and now it's like, well, I think I should do this, but now I don't want to get in trouble if this doesn't work. So now I'm just gonna, you know what I mean? It's like this whole thing, you can almost see what's happening in their head.
Yeah, it is harder, and I think it's you're reacting to the game, you're in the moment, but there's things like, let's say you have Alex, 3-on-2, you want to go to a place on ice. I always say this, but you want to go to a place where you have time and space to create. So because a game, it's about taking time away in space if you're playing defense. So if you're going 3-on-2 and if you go wide enough, and when you get the puck, then you have time to do something with it, because you don't have a sticks. So if you stay close to the defenseman, you get the puck, he pokes you. So you want to go places where you're going to have time and space to create. That's what the game is, but you got to think about these things before you get the puck. And just to give you an example, why is, even in the NHL right now, there's a power play, and it's in the OZ zone, and it's on the left side. They're battling for the puck. Why are they rimming the puck all the way down to the D far side? It's because you want to have time and space. So if that makes sense. So you're a lot of times everyone claps down in that corner. You send that D all the way to the board far. You rim it as far as you can. When he gets that puck, usually you could go behind the net. You could have a pass down. You could reopen, but at least you have time and space to create, because that's what it is. I mean, you just, and then the defense want to take away your time and space. So two players that I really had, you know, admiration to play against. What they were very good at, it's Lindstrom and Ray Bork, to me, my opinion, two defensemen. So before the puck drops, I knew they were there. So if I could go to the other side, I'll go to the other side. So I just knew it. This is something I just, you know, but they were so good to get close to you. So when you had the puck, they were able to poke you and took your time. So you really have to think about it, like go a little further down just to try to go far enough. That's when you get that puck, you got time just to do something with it. And but they were so good to take away that your time and space. And that's the hardest thing in hockey. If you want to create and you don't have the time, then it's harder, you know. So but these two guys I had a lot of respect for them. It was harder to play against. Why? Because they were very good to manage their time and the space where to go and knowing exactly how close you want to be to the forward to take away that time. So
yeah, and on the flip side of that, probably the GOAT and you know, the best to play as far as from a points perspective, like that was something that Gretzky was just brilliant at, wasn't
it? yeah, he was incredible. He slowed down that game. He actually brought slowing down. He didn't need a lot of space, but when he had that space, he had two guys on him, and he hit Paul Coffey coming late. He had Curry coming late. He was able to just brings everyone to him because he could just slow it down and, you know, use that small little space getting in that zone. And usually two or three guys went on him. You're trying not to but he's so good at it that he brought you there. And
yeah, no, I love you breaking it down into that concept. And I try to teach when I'm coaching the young guys too, in concepts, like, you know, like not necessarily like a structured system, but like, what are we trying to accomplish? And what you're trying to accomplish is to create space either for yourself or for someone else, right? When you have the puck, and when you don't have the puck, how do you find space to receive it back, right? So it's totally all about space and spacing and whether you have the puck or without the puck. And then obviously you've spoken very eloquently about Bork and Lindstrom on the other side of it. Like defensemen should be trying to get in spots where they're taking away space and time, right? So it's totally all about space on the ice, and the rink's not getting any bigger anytime soon, right?
No, it's not. It's not. But even defense, I mean, obviously, if you're a defenseman or if you're a centerman, you come back to help your defenseman. You know, Al McInnes used to communicate a lot. He's a good friend and he's a great guy, and I have a lot of respect for him. Saying he was communicating, go attack, don't take time, just don't. Your legs are got to be moving. The time you don't move your legs, you're giving time. Your feet are got to be moving. Mm-hmm. So if you go in that corner to take away time and space, you want to get that puck, go. If you're on the D zone, you want to take away that time. Stick, puck, just come out, chip it out, whatever, but quick. It's got to be on it right away. And he was so good at communicating, and that's one thing he was him and Chris Pronger obviously played with him for a couple of years, and these two guys are the same thing. You know, I was happy to play with these guys for sure because they were good. You know,
exactly 100%. Elite level defenseman, and Pronger, by all accounts, had a lot of nastiness in him that you didn't really want to be around him or too close. I heard even in practice you didn't really want to get too close to him. Is that true?
No, he was fine. I mean, he was good. He was good, but he was good too. He was a good player. Try to flip the pass over someone's sticks, over the sticks, go to the other side. He got in the air, put it down. It's just like he was killed. Like he was good. And he could be mean too. That's you know. But in practice he could. But he was good most of the time. I mean, he was fine. And then you know, on a power play, him and Al McInnes. Wow, that's pretty scary. You know, that's. So we had fun years in St. Louis for sure.
So, but back to you in junior, I guess. So you had your brother. He comes home in the Porsche. You get to see that. Oh, there's actually maybe some dollar bills at the end of this hockey thing that I seem to be pretty good at. Maybe gives you a little extra motivation to, you know, whether it's in the weight room or. Yeah. And but at what point now? So you go play junior. was there like a U17 for Team Canada recognition? Like, when did you start to know that, hey, like, not only are you probably up for the draft, but you might be one of the best, if not the best, in your class? Like, when did that start to materialize for you?
Well, I kind of knew. I mean, so if I rewind, I mean, so Rouen Aranda is 7 hours north from Montreal, and so we had great hockey. So I went from playing midget when I was 13, and I went juvenile AAA when I was 14, and the guys were mans, like they were starting to be men. They were like 16, 17, and 18 when I was 14. But when I was 14, I was 6'2". So I just was a big boy. So, but I was young playing with 16. These guys went to the bar. I went home after. Like I couldn't, yeah. So even if they were 18 they were able to get out. I couldn't. So,
Yeah.
but so I played with a different, really good level of hockey back home. Then when I went back to Montreal, I went back to midget AAA. So I went back to midget, juvenile AAA, went back to midget, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was midget AAA, and then at that point I was a year away, from back home, and then I got drafted number one midget. I got drafted number one junior.
Oh, okay. You're number one in
Yeah.
that draft as well.
So I had, I just love it. I wasn't about number one and number two. I just didn't really mind. I was playing hockey. So,
Yeah.
and then I realized after my first year, maybe junior, that okay, it's starting to look, maybe there's a chance, because you just don't know. You just
Right.
don't know. I mean, and after that second year, after my first year, I'm like, okay, I have a chance. Maybe hopefully it goes well next year, and then it went well, and I got drafted number one. So, but I kind of knew that I had a good chance, but at the end of the day, I wasn't focusing on this. I was focusing on my bubble.
Right.
That's what I was focusing on. Every time I get on the ice, let's focus on that bubble. That's it. So I didn't really phase or felt the pressure, or I just want to be in that bubble. And that was my look into it, if that makes sense.
No, it does. I mean, but goodness gracious, it sounds like it was so natural for you too, right? To be able to create that, especially at that age, with all the, the things that could be going on, or that were going on
Yeah.
around you, right? I mean, there was people that wanted to talk to you. I'm sure you knew there were scouts there. You knew there were stories being written about you, and just to stay in that sweet spot is much easier said than done. Is there any, like, you said it was just natural for you, but like, how was it natural for you about the bubble away from the rink? How did you keep all that noise away?
That's a great question. That's a very good. It's hard because you do hear it. You're in Montreal, so I mean, obviously the media is talking. There's a chance. So when you get off the ice, all of a sudden there's expectation. They're saying, "Wow, what about they're thinking that you're gonna go here? You're gonna go." So, but you're right. There's expectation. You hear more of noise, and when you're just off ice, you go to school, you hear about it, you go to, and media, the Journal de Montréal, they talk about it. So but I mean, the good thing is I was able to shut it down when I came to the rink, and I was able just to playing hockey, and that was my go-to. And I just didn't know how to call it. I call it bubble today, but I call it bubble then, but I didn't know what it was when I was young. I just didn't know what it was. I just got it in the moment, So, yeah.
Would you, for the players in this day and age, because even you're a bit older than me, and even when I was playing, the cell phones weren't around and the social media wasn't around, and I mean, if you wanted to know what happened, you had to pick up the paper, like the legitimate paper, and read it, right? Would you be a guy that would have, like, do you think you'd be tapped into like the Twitter and the stuff now, or as a professional athlete, would you be like out and like try and keep yourself as much in the dark as possible?
It's so funny you're saying this. 2 days ago, my daughter was here. We just opened an Instagram and a Facebook account. I just did 2 days ago. That's funny you bring this up. I just didn't know. I don't know. I just never did. Maybe I would have when I was young. I think when you grew up with it, I mean, the kids today, that's what they know. That's
Yeah.
what they and I didn't really mind, but they've been telling me you should get one, and I did. And you just bring this up, and it was just a couple days ago.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, there's just so much. I mean, you have to be really disciplined, I find, in a way that kids. I mean, it's hard to be disciplined first, even to your craft, right? But then I think
Yeah.
with that addition now, like on the social side, and like this
Mhm.
device that's so addictive just in and of itself, and now so like for instance, Connor Bedard, like I would love to know what Connor Bedard, like how he uses his phone, because you could fall in love with yourself really quick on that thing. You know what I mean, right?
Yeah,
Or there's the
yeah,
comparison metrics. Like if you're not a Connor Bedard, like they're like everyone's doing better than you. If you're a guy that's trying to get, I mean, there's just so many,
yeah.
psychological things that can happen there
Sure.
if you're going down the wrong rabbit hole. So yeah, I don't know, especially with the young kids. I think it's
Yeah,
something that needs to be chatted about for sure. You know what I mean, and understood how you're using it.
yeah, yeah. And it was easier then. You're right. And when I played in Montreal for 2 years, a year and a half to 2 years, uh, at one point, I just not. I mean, you're Montreal or Toronto, or you're very good or you're very bad. I mean, there's no middle. But it's the experience was incredible. I loved it. But I wasn't reading the paper in Montreal, so I was just I went every morning. Went to Tim Horton, get my coffee. Went to the rink for they practice, and I had someone right behind me. He said, "Hey, did you read the paper this morning?" I said, "No, I don't." But I'll tell you what they said about you. I said, okay, thank you. Those are things but it's the paper. Today, you're right. It's different. Now you have it in all the time. It's in the media, it's in front of you, it pops out on your phone. I mean, it's easy to get the data. And how do you balance this mentally? If it's negative, that's gonna be tough. It's not easy. It's not easy too, for sure. So
And
it's just to find that
everybody has an
ground.
opinion, right?
Yeah,
Everybody gets an opinion. It's crazy,
yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Um,
I think if you're able to find that ground level as much as you can, don't go too high, don't go too low. Just be just there, without because when things are going well, it's easy to go here, but when you go down, there's a big gap.
yeah.
You're going down, like it's just so find that balance here mentally, just to feel even if you hear something negative or something positive, just be neutral as much as you can. It's hard,
Yeah.
obviously, it's not easy, but I think you benefit from it. I think at the end of the day, I think.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I mean, one of the things that I work with my players on is the ability to self-assess, like to really understand yourself. I think that's like such a key to unlock
Yeah.
like who you are. And some players I know thrive on it, right? Like either they use it as motivation or, whatever the case may be. And some players it really breaks them, and so it's like, hey, you know what? Just be honest with that. I mean, if you are somebody that succumbs to the social media craziness, then don't be on it. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
really don't be on it, right? And if
Yeah.
you're somebody that uses it and uses it well, then by all means. But you do have to have that first step of recognition.
100%.
Where do I fit with this, right?
Yeah.
Um, so your draft year, you're going through it, you're rolling. I'm just looking at Hockey DB right now, 154 points in 58 games. Obviously an incredible year, 69 goals. You go first overall. Is there any draft day stories? Like, was it, I mean, by the way, for those listening, I believe Brendan Shanahan went second. So, I mean, a hell
Yes.
of a player, obviously, in his own
Yeah.
right. Was there some discrepancy about who might go first that year?
They were talking about. I mean, there's when you look at Glenn Wesley was there, incredible career. Joe Sakic was, uh, down the road. I mean, I can't remember exactly which one, but the draft. You look at the players, incredible. I mean, that draft was incredible, great draft.
Yeah.
So I mean, again, you just don't. It was not. I didn't compare. I just wanted to, be me. And that's and so I didn't really, it was hard to know too. We didn't have the social media to really get the information of every single player. It was more so you just go and I was just being nervous being at the draft, couldn't really communicate. And I was just focusing on that, just trying to say hopefully I'm not gonna look too bad, try to communicate. And I was just nervous for that, really.
Right.
And so it was hard to really sink in and appreciate it just because I was just out of my, comfort zone and 18 and just being away from I've been away from home, but being away just from the language, and it's just not, so I wasn't feeling very comfortable with it. But again, the Sabres and Jeremy and all these guys made it very comfortable to blend in, and so I could really ease myself in. So
Yeah, the language barrier would be definitely a huge
yeah.
thing, especially you mentioned it already, your first year pro there and trying to fit in with your teammates and, not being able to know what they're joking about and what they're talking
Yeah.
about and all that stuff would have been a
And
challenge.
the practice, the coach, he's explaining something. Okay, I don't know. You go behind the line. Hopefully, when it's your turn, you understand just by looking at it and seeing
Right.
it. But one guy that really helped me, it was Jacques Cloutier. He was a goalie, the backup goalie there, and he's a good friend of mine today. And I was able to just call him once in a while, say, "How do you say I'm hungry?" Or just, how do you say, you just don't know. So
Right.
when practice, the same thing. I used to go see him and say, "What are you supposed to do?" So he helped me quite a bit on that regard, for sure.
So when it comes to that, maybe we just talk about that because that's obviously a real piece. I
Oh
had
yeah,
Ladislav Kon on. I don't even remember if you remember
yeah,
him at all, but he was a journeyman kind of throughout the league, and he came over from Czech Republic and didn't speak a word of English as a 19-year-old, right? And was in the Western Hockey League. Couldn't talk to anybody, right? Like probably
yeah.
felt like the loneliest person in the world. So I did have a recent conversation about that. But how did your English grow? Is it something that you dedicated yourself to with classes, or you just pick it up organically
Well, I,
throughout the years?
I took class before going, obviously, before the draft, but it was really hard. Obviously, it's being in the place where you have to speak it. It was the best thing to do. They actually put me with a billet family, but they
Mhm.
only speak English my first year and a half, 2 years. So I was forced to really engage, which was the best thing. And then after a year and a half, I started feeling more comfortable and I felt more in being able to communicate with my teammates. But it took me a year and a half. But the biggest difference was I got in, the billet family was a great thing for me. It was hard,
Yeah.
but I didn't have choice. I was forced to speak it, which was a good thing.
Would you classify yourself more as an extrovert or introvert, just on a natural human scale?
Uh, I don't know. I don't know. I can't
The
even
reason
answer
I
that.
ask that is because, like, sometimes, obviously you've been in locker rooms before, right? Some guys are really outgoing. Some guys are the life of the party. Some guys they sit in their stall and I'll laugh, but usually aren't involved in it. But then if you add that layer on of now not being able to speak. So whether you're an extrovert, right, who wants to be in the center and like telling the jokes and stuff, or whether
Yeah.
you're an introvert, like both those things like really get magnified, or there's massive resistance there, right? So like,
Yeah, I was more on the quiet side for sure, and yeah, for sure. I
gotcha.
wasn't a loud guy. I was in the screen, like I was just more me, but I did love the locker room. Obviously, I love it's just feel like you're home, and there's things that they talk about that you're like, okay, just you can't say this in the locker room, but you can't say it any place else, But it's the family locker room stuff that
Right.
it's fun. I mean, there's always jabs. It's part of just being the family, and part of the family. And but that's one thing you do miss when you stop playing hockey is that.
Yeah.
And but I wasn't the guy that used to be in front and I was just more in the back and just listen, just let it be. And then, yeah, that was me.
Just going to take a short break again from the conversation with Pierre Turgeon to share another testimonial with you, another player spotlight. And this one comes from a U13 player who, unfortunately for him, was cut from his rep team. So there was one rep team in his local area. He was not able to make that team as a first year, and he was sent to House League. So he was playing House League and was not very happy with his results at camp, was not happy with his performance, wasn't happy with his preparedness and his ability to overcome his nervousness. And he ended up enrolling in the mentored mission with me of the Peak Potential Project. So that means it's a one-on-one journey through the program. And over the course of 6 weeks, I worked with this boy named Carter, and he started to see some significant changes. He started to see some changes in his insight and his approach and his willingness to deal with certain situations. And he started to really see himself in the mirror for the first time about how he was getting in his own way. And one of the assignments in the Peak Potential Project is to design what is called, I call, a power statement. So similar to a goal, but not a goal. I don't really like to use the word goal. I like to use the word power statement because you're supposed to identify where you want to be in the short term, and then also where you want to be in the long term. And when I'm getting these players to identify what that is, it's identifying what it looks like. What role are they having on what team? What are they doing? How are they being utilized on that team? And what are the results looking like? And that exercise, part of that, why I have them do that exercise is because there's going to be a gap, right, between that player, that person, and who they are right now. And so they need to build a foundation that's going to require them to get to that vision that they have of this power statement. So in Carter's power statement, he wrote that his big goal was to make the U13 rep team. And at the time, he had about 6 months, I guess, to prepare for that. And that was his short-term power statement, that he wanted to make his rep team, and he also wanted to be one of the go-to defensemen on that team. And I got an email from his mother just after training camp, and Mom writes, "Carter wanted to make sure I sent you an email letting you know that he made his rep team and is so thankful for all the work you did with him. He really worked so hard at tryouts, and even other parents commented on his change in drive and endurance. We are very appreciative of your coaching." Now, those are obviously nice for me to read. But again, it's nice for me to read because this kid is now empowered, and this kid was able to take his game to another level. Yes, I helped him in the beginning to build a foundation, to connect some dots for him, but he was able to execute for 6 months after that to make it happen for himself. He is the one that did that. So they're thanking me, but he knows inside that he is the one that executed. He was the one that delivered. He was the one that made new choices. He was the one that showed up and was the player that he needed to be to make that happen. So it's so exciting for me because that is the legacy of the Peak Potential Hockey Project, and that is the legacy of working on mindset and working on your mental approach to things. Very unlike something like power skating, right? Like a power skating lesson or a skill session or something that will stay with you, yes, in your hockey, but it's not something that's going to serve you outside of the game with your schoolwork. It's not going to serve you when you walk into the next dressing room that you're in. It's not going to serve you when you're trying to design a practice plan for your summer or trying to make a decision on a rainy day whether you should go for that run you wanted to or not. So these types of choices and these types of new connections that these players are exposed to, and now they can make new decisions, and they leave with a big smile on their face, and they capture these things that they wanted. That is so inspiring to me. And yeah, there's another player spotlight of this time with the U13 player that was able to capture what he wanted on his own. And super thankful that they shared that with me, and now I'm sharing it with you. So again, if you are interested in the Peak Potential Project, my signature mindset program, whether it be a solo mission, which is by yourself, whether it be a guided mission, which is with other athletes and it involves my coaching, or whether it be a mentored mission, which is one-on-one with me throughout the entire program, Up My Hockey, www.upmyhockey is where you find that. And again, the other alternative is to take it with your team. An amazing team building experience. Awesome for competitive teams, gives you a competitive advantage in your league, and actually is a competitive advantage for any program that is trying to recruit players, right? That wants to have a program that is differentiated from others. When you have a mental toughness program, a mindset program that is a plug and play type deal with a mental performance coach like myself that can aid your players, you are obviously providing more than some other associations or programs. So it is a brand item and is also something that your players will benefit from and they will utilize. So yeah, www.upmyhockey.com if you're interested in that. And now let's get back to the conversation with Pierre Turgeon. I'm going to jump just here just because it's kind of a good spot to talk about leadership. And you are one of the few to, my goodness, don the Montreal Canadiens jersey with a C on his left chest.
Yeah.
What one, I mean, a huge honor, and I'm sure you'll speak to it. But
Yeah.
what was it like to be captain, and what did you feel your leadership style was while wearing the C?
Yeah, what was weird is you look at the Montreal Canadiens when I got there. It was I get there. It was at the end. It was just trading and deadline almost, and then we had a couple months to make the playoff, and but there's a lot of thing happening in a year and a half to 2 years. We're talking about Patrick Roy situation. I was there, closing the farm, opening the Molson Center. They fired Serge Savard. They hired Reginald. Demers was gone, and then Tremblay came in. So in a year and a half, that's what happened. This is what I mean. There's a ton of stuff happened in a short period of time, and it was. And then I was captain for a short period of time too, just because the trade uh, with Patrick and Keane went down. They went to Colorado, and Keane was the captain. So when they closed the form, I was the captain. It's just be at the right place, the right time. That's all it was for me. I mean, you look at the history and that ceremony that night. You look at all the captains on the ice. You're talking Jean Beliveau, Maurice Richard. I mean, you're talking big names there, and you guys had goosebumps. I'm like, what am I doing here? The little boy from Rouyn-Noranda. What's crazy? Seriously. And I'm part of that tradition. I'm part of, that ceremony. It's incredible. So, what I remember the most, obviously, it's that. I mean, it's just there's nothing that could top that. But again, I was just to be in the right place, the right time. That's what it was, right?
Well, I was asking about that's crazy. Yeah, I mean, just the tradition of the Montreal Canadiens, and like I said,
Yeah.
to have the C is so wild.
Mhm.
But you being a quieter guy, and you saying that you were kind of
Yeah.
more of a quieter guy, more in the introvert
Yeah.
style, and why I'm bringing
Yeah.
that up is because, especially at the youth hockey level, like when I'm talking to players, whether it be U11, even up to U15, U17, even U9, like junior A, like there's this preconceived notion that you have to be really good at giving speeches, or you have to be the loudest guy in the locker room to be the leader of the team. And I continually speak to, no, you need to be yourself authentically first is the most important
Mhm.
thing. And you're
Mhm.
going to lead the way you lead, but your example is going to speak more than anything else you'll ever say, right? That anything that'll come out of your mouth. So
200%.
anyway, this thought
Yeah.
maybe you could speak to that, because you don't seem like a guy that
So,
would be giving game day speeches all the time. You'd probably be a
yeah.
guy leading more by example, and maybe speak to the younger audience out there about what it means to be a leader if you're not somebody who's super vocal.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be authentic. You are totally right. It's you. It's be you. Don't be anybody else. I mean, that's the way you are. Joe Sakic was one of the best captain I played for. This guy, did he talk a lot? No. Al McInnes? No. Chris Monger? No. These guys talk once in a while, but they did. When they did, it meant something too. So but it's okay. I think you said it too. Lead by example. I mean, it's you want to be on the ice, you want to do what you do, and at the end of the day, if you have to say something, you do. But you want to show, you want to make sure you do it on the ice, and you don't need to be a loud captain. This captain has been there. Some guys are great speaker, and that's fine too. I mean, it all depends. Be yourself, and just looking at Joe Sakic was an incredible guy I played with. He's a friend today, and I have a lot of respect for the man. That's for sure. It's a good example.
What Yeah, I mean, the one thing I talk about with again with the younger guys is, like, you have to be able to lead yourself first too. Like that is such a key component. Like they're so worried about what their teammates are thinking, or how do I mean, well, are you taking care of your own
Yeah.
backyard, right? I mean, like, you got to be able to take care of yourself, lead yourself, be a leader there. And then once you've got that figured out, now you can start expanding and looking towards others and being a leader for others. And sometimes I just think like the whole leadership idea is backwards, like thinking about others first, thinking
Yeah.
about what I'm supposed to say first. It's like how you act and who you are comes first, and then you become somebody that people want to follow. So
Yeah, and I think it doesn't need to be a lot. You come in the locker room in the morning, good morning, how you doing? Just smaller things. They're not big things, but there's things. And if you see someone that's struggling, go see him in person. It doesn't need to be in the front. You don't. can I do something? Can I help you? There's anything that bugs you, or so being a leader. That's those. It doesn't show it. You don't see it to your teammate, but be kind and be you, and just if you go reach someone that needs help, you might say something that might make a difference for him. He might have a better day. He might have, whatever that is. It's smaller details that I think helps. If you want to be a leader, be good in you and focus on you being an example. But at the same time, smaller things around the game could help other people around you to
Was
be a
there any
better.
weight of that role that bogged you down at all, or did you feel pretty comfortable?
I felt very comfortable. Yeah, I did. I mean, it's just I love going in the locker room in the morning. Good morning, how you doing? You reach out, just to say. It's just if you see someone that's not, it. It's okay to say, can I do something? Can I help you? Can I, just outside of hockey, Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to go to example, but yeah, I was in Montreal. Someone reached me and said, I have problem with something. I said, okay, I'll go ask and we'll figure it out. But that's what you do, and you do, it's outside of hockey. Sometimes it could be personal and you're just, you're there to make a difference, and you want to help.
Ryan Johnson. So Ryan Johnson was my first pro roommate, and we're still buddies today. And he was a guest on, and he actually said something that I thought was wild, and I've actually used it now with my clients and with the guys that I'm working with. And that's what he said. Whenever he got down or whenever he was having a rough time, like he learned over the years, like I said, with experience, that was the moment that he knew he had to go talk to somebody else. Like he had to take his focus off of him and go try and lift up a teammate sitting across the room.
That's awesome.
And I thought that was absolutely brilliant because you know how that goes, right? That downward spiral and things get worse and everything gets negative. But if you focus your attention somewhere else and you want to make someone else have a positive impact somewhere else, all of a sudden that lightens the load for you too. So,
you're helping.
Maybe you're saying there as a captain, even having that responsibility potentially could have even expanded you as a player and as a person because you weren't, didn't get the opportunity to focus on what was going on with Pierre. You were worried about the other guys in the locker room.
Yeah, and I think it's a great point, for sure. I mean, it's just, if you help other people, I mean, it's gratifying. So, I mean, it's self-esteem, it's good for you. Yes. So I think it's a great thing. There's no doubt, 100%. Great example.
Did you, and I didn't have a chance to look it up. So you were given the C, and then, like you said, you had a relatively short tenure there, and you got traded to St. Louis. Did you get traded while with the C on your chest?
Yeah. So, I mean, I asked to be traded from Montreal too. So the reason is the change and the things didn't connect well, with, some coaching staff but that was okay. I mean, it's just, and I think they were, I was 27 years old at that point, and my role was supposed to change. They were, getting older, and I wasn't ready for that. So, and that's the reason I wanted to move. So I stretched my career for another 10 years after that. So it was the right thing to do, just because if I would have stayed there and the approach they had was, I'm 27, I'm getting older, and I just wasn't ready for that. So,
right.
So that's the one I asked that trade. That's when I went to St. Louis, and Mike Keenan was there as a coach. So, and I'm like, he wants me. And I for 3 months I played for him, and I like it. So it was good. I mean, I played a ton,
Good.
a lot, but it was my experience was great. I mean, it was short, but it was good.
So there's a difference. I mean, that's actually maybe something to contrast. You said you enjoyed your time with Mike. Some players obviously didn't. I mean, it sounds like it was how, and maybe you can speak to that more. You said Al had the approach of like he would touch everybody the way they needed to be touched, right? Yeah. Everyone, he would pull the levers. Was Mike a one fits all approach, or did he try and do the same thing?
Pretty much the same thing. So it was a different for sure. But all that learning, younger too, I was able to process things. You could come back on the bench and, have someone telling you what, screaming or saying something. And again, I was older at that point, so your process is different too. So you're like, okay, good. You take what's good, leave what's bad, and you just focus on it. But again, I had the chance to go back, like you're saying. So if I made a mistake, I heard it, but I was back on the ice again. So I wasn't sitting down. So I was able just at least I had a chance to really, okay, I'm going to do it now. So different. The approach was completely different. I mean, it's just Mike was more on a hard, it's hard, tough. You win one game, it's unbelievable. You lose one game, it's not good. Like it's just not okay. So, but he did what he did, and he had a great coaching career. But it was different. So, but again, I only played for 3 months with Mike, so I don't know. Maybe if I would have played for 2 years, it would have been different too.
Right. Yeah,
So,
fair enough.
yeah.
Did you have any? I know you played World Junior the 1 year there. I believe your draft year. Did you have any other international experience as far as Canada's concerned with an Olympics or a World Cup or?
Well, we did. I was 18. We went to Czechoslovakia. That's what we did. Yeah. And so that experience was a different experience just because we got kicked out, big fight, turn off the lights and all that stuff with Junior. But it was just a different experience. That is for sure.
So you must have been one of the younger players on that team then, right? I mean, you were a draft eligible guy. You hadn't been drafted at that point. You were just up for the draft, almost like a Connor Bedard this year, right? There's only a few guys that are draft eligible in that tournament. So you were one of the younger players there?
Yeah. Shanahan was there too, I think. And then the other guys were there, Darren Fleury, McCaff, King. Anyway, so we had a ton of older guys for sure. Maybe me and Shanny was maybe the younger guys there for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So what was I did have Chris Joseph on. So he was an ex-teammate of mine, and he was on that team as well.
Yeah.
So I played with him in Mannheim, and he said that was one of the scariest things he's ever been involved in. Like at the time, he said it was absolutely petrifying. Like, what do you remember from that experience? And just for those at home, and not that maybe you can paint it, because I wasn't there, but walk through what happened there.
Yeah, I mean, the game where we needed to win against Russia by a couple goals, and if I'm not mistaken, it was a fight on the ice, and then there's one guy that jumped to go, one of his teammate the other side that jumped to go help their team. So an extra guy went in, and then next thing you know, is it got to be the 2 bench clear up, And I know we talked about this earlier as far as staying on the bench, and some of the guys were. I maybe it was the last one getting on the ice, but I was on the ice, So I don't know. This came out from somewhere at one point that I stayed on the bench during the fight. I have no idea.
Right.
But I went on the ice. I hold on a guy. I didn't fight. I just and actually this guy just stayed with me, and then that was it. So but it was they shut off they turned off the lights. The light went off, thinking that it's going to get better. Well, it got worse. Obviously everyone was just going at it even worse. So it's just an incredible things that happened, just that from we were going to in a place where we were going to win, and next thing you know is it turned out to be it was bad. And then after the game, we just all got out, and then he had guards all the way down to the bus, and we already had packed our stuff, but we couldn't go anyplace else. And when the police are on the bus, and they kicked us out so fast, it's not even we couldn't go anywhere. Yeah. So that was
crazy.
Yeah. But the story, I mean, still people talk about it, obviously, and so.
Wow.
The experience was just, and obviously we were young. I wasn't playing a lot. I was just watching most of the time. But that was, the experience was still fine up to that point. So we're like, wow, this is nuts.
Right.
It's crazy.
Well, really, probably the most infamous moment in world junior hockey history, right?
Yeah.
Canada, Russia. Brawl, bench clearing with the lights off. Like, does it get any crazier than that? That's nuts.
It's funny because in the light, I remember we could see a little bit. They turned off the light thinking it's going to stop. It got worse.
Yeah.
It's just people would say, okay, here we go. It just got worse.
Crazy.
So.
Yeah. Wow. And so how about that with Olympic years then? You must have been somebody that was invited to the camps and like that type of, was that like a thing that was like there was a couple close calls there or what?
Yeah, I did. I went to Toronto once, but you're talking about this is funny because I got invited maybe a month before, and obviously we're going there. There's Gretzky, Lemieux, Howard Shaw, and name it. That's just there's no chance, but the experience was unbelievable. I had a great experience. It was fun. That was in Toronto, and then I just that's probably the only one I had.
What year was
Uh,
that?
uh, Early '90s, and I
Early
don't know
90s.
which one, but I will say early '90s. Is that when Lemieux scored the? Is it early '90s or was it after that when Gretzky passed to
90s.
Lemieux? Lemieux scored top shelf on
That was
the.
88,
Like,
I think, wasn't it?
okay,
No,
that
Calgary
might
was
be.
88. The Olympics was 88. Maybe that was 80. No, I can't remember. Yeah, what
I
was
don't
it?
know.
92?
Uh,
That
I
was
don't
an
know.
amazing event, though. So yeah, that
Hey,
was
this is the best hockey ever, like crazy. That was
yeah,
exciting.
that was totally fun.
That was exciting. But you could see talent there. That was just talent.
Yeah. Well, you're
Wow.
a five-time All-Star. Like, I mean, that's super. I mean, that's
Yeah.
distinguishing, obviously, and what an honor to do that. Do any of those games? Like, do you remember any of those games, or was maybe the first one kind of super special because you were recognized among your peer group?
Yeah, it was in Pittsburgh, obviously. So, and then Mario put a show. So yeah, I think he had 4 goals. I'm going to see. I don't know. So something like this, but it was fun. I mean, it was my first year doing it. It was my second year, I think, playing in the NHL, and having all these guys around. Same thing. You're talking about Gretzky, Lemieux, Mark Messier, just it's the legend. Like, it's great. And now you're 19. You're coming in. You're looking. This is why. What am I doing here? It's
Wow,
crazy.
I never realized that was your second year pro. What a
Yes,
cool
and I think it
experience
was
that must
19
have
or
been.
20, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So 20, so something like this. So it was incredible just being part of it, just being sitting in the locker room. Just wow. And
How good was Mario?
I think Mario was obviously he's game was on the line. He was dangerous. Like, it's crazy. I think when he came one-on-one against you, that's a scary part. Like, you go, okay, yeah, I'm gonna go back a little bit more, just because. And yes, because he's got that. He's mobile. He's 6'6". He's got hands. He's good. He goes around goalies. He goes around players. He goes around. He's scary. And he did that to Raybor, because remember that one he passed.
Yeah.
He always said it. He said, I always wanted to do. If you do this to Raybor, that's crazy.
We beat him
That's
four
crazy.
times. He beat him 4 times almost,
Yeah,
right?
getting back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, top shelf on top of it. Oh my God, are you kidding me? That's crazy. So it's an ease. When you say Gretzky and you say Lemieux, they're incredible. They're different. Gretzky was able to just bring you to him and just hit the late guy. He just slow down the game. He found that soft spot where you could go. And he got lost in a corner. All of a sudden came back. We had an empty net. You can even see it. Like, all of a sudden he went behind the net. He loved that behind the net. I love that behind the net too. So, but it was a different thing. But Lemieux was just one-on-one was just scary. Like,
Yeah.
when he came on you, it's just so different style, but an incredible
Yeah, that's
players.
why he was my idol. I mean, it's interesting you say that. Well, maybe not. I'm sure we're not the only ones that saw that. But I just thought he was the best on breakaways, I thought, ever. I thought he was the
Oh, yeah.
best one-on-one player ever. And I just love that about him. Like, he could beat guys just by himself, where Gretzky was amazing, of course, too, but he really, like, again, drew people and then used other people to get open again, right? He wasn't necessarily a guy that would attack individuals one-on-one. And I just thought Mario was pretty special at doing that. You said earlier, which I love the line, do you shoot to shoot or do you shoot to score? There's a mindset involved in that, I believe,
100%.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Talk more about that, like being able to be a goal scorer.
So I don't know. I mean, sometimes you get in that zone, sometimes you're not, but it's just hard. But one thing I try to, and even now, even before, like, you shoot 5-0 or you shoot top left side, you're shooting there. You're not gonna miss it. You're shooting top glove right side. I'm shooting there. I'm gonna score. This is what I'm shooting for sure. And it doesn't mean that it's gonna go there, but you might miss it. But after that, your process. Oh, missed it. Well, oh, it's gone. Next time, I'm shooting left. I'm shooting left under the bar. I'm gonna shoot there, and I'm gonna shoot to put it there. I'm gonna score. So then, or 5-0, that little hole 5-0, or the sticks right under the sticks to the pad, and I mean, there's a little areas. If you shoot there, you got to have that. Just believe that you're gonna score, and it doesn't mean that you're gonna score. A lot of times you're not gonna score, but the process of your thinking makes a difference. 100%. It makes a difference. There's no doubt about that.
I watch guys in practice, and I can't even honestly remember like my own self. So now it's more me watching. I was a goal scorer, when I played, and
Yeah.
took pride in it and loved it. I was more of a shooter than a passer. But I remember, I do remember in practice, like loving to like beat the goalie. That was something like that for sure. You do the drill to do the drill, but then like for
Yeah.
me, like the icing on top was like, you got to end with a goal, right? That's the whole thing. But I see so many guys now that it's almost like they shoot, to your point, like the drill's done, shoot to shoot, go back in
Yeah.
line and start again, right? Like, were you a guy that tried to shoot to score in practice as
Oh
well?
yeah, maybe practice. Yeah, yeah. And coming back to the story earlier, and I said I'll come back to that story in St. Louis. 27 years old, and we practice at the end. We're shooting the pucks, and we're just focusing. And Brett Hall comes to me, and I played with Brett in the same line for a couple of years. He's incredible. And he goes to me. He goes, "You don't know how to do a one-timer." I said, "Well, I've been here for a while, so I think I'm okay." He goes, "No." I said, "Okay." He said, "I'll show you." So we stayed on the ice, and the way he actually, first of all, he said, "Your sticks is too stiff. You need to whip your sticks," and he was right. And second thing is your hands, the top hand it's got to be away from your body. I said, "Okay." And then you don't go back to go forward. If you all know you're going to do one timer, one motion forward, it's a lot easier when you think about it. And then your top hand, when it's away from your body, you're able, if I'm going like this, you're able to go adjust. So his range of a one timer was like 2 feet. Why? Because his hands were moving, and he always said, "Let the stick do the work." So I learned this when I was 27. I came off the edge and I go, I'm going home. I'm driving home. I'm thinking, okay, I'm 27. I'm still learning. That's crazy. But he's right. He was right. So I learned something that, and then the way he should shoot the puck, he was incredible. He was an incredible hockey player. And I actually, I needed to have just to play with him because he was, it's the first couple of months you're like, okay, and then after that it was just incredible playing with him, and he was an incredible hockey player, and you learn how to hear what you want to hear with Brett. Sometimes he could be hard, he could be tough, he could be, he says what he thinks, and but you learn how to understand how he is, where he's coming from, and a lot of times it comes from a good place. So
Yeah.
and it was fun,
Do
so
you
I
remember?
enjoyed playing.
Do you remember what flex he used? I heard that he used a pretty whippy stick. Do you remember what that was?
70, I think 75, 70 even.
Right.
I think he played with 80, 85, 80, I think 80 or 75, I think. But he used to change sticks during the power play so he could stay on the board just for one team.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Because
he
these
was
kids
he
now,
was
they use like that Connor Bedard. I know I work with a guy that plays with Regina, and he uses like a
okay.
68 kind of flex, right? Like, and he uses a long stick, and you
Yeah.
see that release that he has, right? And yeah, like I just don't. I get it for the. I understand. I think like the technology wise and the benefits on the wrist shot, but I don't get
Yeah.
it for the one timer. To me, I still like when I use a flexi stick, like it almost feels like it's bending in half, and I have no idea where the
It's
thing's
dying
going.
on you.
So
You just got to put the right amount of pressure. When you know what to, so, and it was an adjustment for sure. We played with wood sticks all our life,
right. Yeah,
and it was a different flex everywhere. Some sticks were breaking easy. It was not. This is now when you know what you're getting and you know exactly it's consistent. It's incredible. I mean, my kick point was like probably 6 inches from the bottom. I love that kick point. Instead of having some people like the middle of the shaft, they have all that angle that comes like this. So I always love little wrister, little. It's just, and then you're right. If you put too much weight on it, it dies on you. It goes in the corner. So it's just, yeah, you get put the right amount of weights. So even Brett, when he shot the puck with 70 flex or 75 flex, he didn't overkill it. He just hit that puck and he let the stick do the work. That's what he was
right.
saying. It's a
Yeah,
beautiful thing. When you hit that spot, it's a nice thing. It's a good feeling. It just
yeah.
takes off. It's like, wow, it's
The
good.
one of my clients, Cole Dubinsky, he plays in Prince George now for the Cougars. Anyways, we had a discussion about stick flex, and he actually said pretty much the exact same thing you're saying. He's like, yeah, you have to actually, how's the right way to say it? Like you don't shoot it as hard. He's like, you
Yeah,
actually like you don't try as hard on the one timer because
that's right.
you let the stick release the puck,
Yeah.
and obviously us with those big heavy Eastons that we were using back in the day in the Illumins, you had to lean on those
Titan.
things. So
Yeah.
oh,
It's
that's
funny,
fun.
and on top of it, you don't need to go high. I mean, the time you're top here to touch that puck, they're already here. You look at Ovechkin; he's got that stick already. Just he just it's a half a slap shot kind of. He
Yeah,
doesn't. I mean, think about we used to touch the ceiling,
yeah,
everything up, and just the higher we go, the harder it's going to go. Now you don't need to, just
yeah,
half, and then let the stick do the work.
yeah.
It's incredible the difference. It's incredible.
One more short break from the conversation with Pierre Turgeon, just to give you guys a thank you. I've read a couple testimonials now from players who are graduates. Of course, I always appreciate testimonials from those of you who are podcast listeners and enjoy the program. So whether you're watching this on YouTube, my goodness, write a comment, subscribe, give a thumbs up. That's fantastic. If you're watching or listening to this, an audio version of it somewhere, chances are it's probably on the iTunes platform, the Apple Music platform, as 80% of you seem to be listening on your Apple device. Please pull the car over or stop and take a second right now and just press pause, press 5 stars, write your quick review. It really doesn't take any time at all. And let's get those ratings up there. And let me read one of your reviews on my next podcast. I love reading out the new reviews when they do arrive. You know how grateful I am when you do take the time to do that. And it obviously promotes what we're doing here with Up My Hockey. And we're trying to make 2023 the greatest year of the podcast yet. And considering the guests that we've had here in the last few, with 4-time Stanley Cup champ Dwayne Sutter and first overall pick Pierre Turgeon and 1,300 points, and the list of players I have lined up, it is going to be a fantastic year. So let's get those reviews out there, and let's let people know what we're doing here, what we're talking about, and why Up My Hockey is just a little bit different than all the other podcasts out there. So thanks again for those of you who are here. And now back to the conversation with Pierre Turgeon. You said at 27 there, like that was like this, obviously this point in your career where you remember that, hey, wow, I just learned something. And it was kind of funny too, because you juxtaposed that by saying at the beginning, well, I think I'm okay. I've been here a while and, a few All-Star games under my belt, Brett, but no. There is something more to learn. And curiosity is something that I have spoken about here on the podcast many times. And I think that a curious player is a better player, like not only looking inward and finding out, what makes you tick, but also like outward, asking questions, being willing to receive feedback. And somebody that comes to mind is like Chara, who's now retired, but it sounded like he, and although I never met him personally, was always looking for that next kind of advantage, that next thing, whether it be in nutrition or in the gym or exercise or, way to improve himself. And even from a player standpoint, like I did see when he came into the league as an 18, 19, 20-year-old, and he was not the same player that he ended the league with, like as far as from a skill development standpoint, even, like he improved his game immensely. Is there anyone from your time that you could speak to that was like, that had that approach? Like it was always trying to get better, like was intentional about their development?
I remember Patrick. Patrick Waugh, when he just all his equipment was just working on his equipment every day to make this wider, stretchier, or just and all of a sudden the league started going, okay, you can't, I remember he had a blocks between his pads, and then when he butterflied, the block stopped everything, and he had a block on the side of his jersey here, right in the side, and then he had a web. His jersey was bigger, so the puck could jam between his, like all these things. And then the league came in and said, okay, the pads got to be that wide. The restriction of blocks and stuff, and then you had to. It was getting just in a place where. So as far as a goalie, so that's what I saw. But as far as me looking for forward, I don't know. It's there's always. I think there was a transition for. I came in, some guys were getting there to get in shape, and because we had 6 weeks of training camp. And now, your preseason games might be after 5 days, so it's a different approach. Now you got to be ready. The kids don't have much reps. There's just sometimes, I don't know, sometimes they should have more rest as far as in the summer. They can take some time off. but they're working on their skill, the quick feet, the core. I mean, we used to do bench press as every week as we could. I mean, squats. How many squats can I do? So much leg. It was extreme. And now it's got nothing to do with this. I mean, yes, it is important, but at the same time, there's a balance of core and quick feet, and it's a different approach. And nutrition is a big thing now. I mean, obviously, even through my career, I changed the way I ate. I eat a little bit, eat smaller portion all the time. Just try to control my weights, and it was something I work on all the time. But at the first part of it, I was like 208, 210, 215, and I got to a place where I played 195, 196. It was my best weight, and I didn't realize this. I just didn't know.
Right.
I was eating too much poutine in the summer. That was my problem.
What do you weigh now? You look like a lean, mean fighting machine.
Yeah, I'm still playing a lot. So I'm playing a couple times a week. So I'm back to almost, I'm maybe 4 pounds, 5 pounds away from my playing weight. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But I try to eat well. I have fun. I go play on the ice, and then I work out, swim, go for a run. I try to keep busy, and it makes me feel better. So it's
Cool.
been part of our life. So I just don't want to stop doing it.
I hear you, man. Well,
Yeah.
it treats you well. You have two kids, and you talked about a lot of players now, well, especially the professionals, which I completely understand.
Mhm.
Like it's an 11-month thing, maybe 11.5-month thing.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah. Yeah.
When you were playing and growing up, were you an athlete? Like, did you play other sports, and did you describe yourself as an athlete as well as a hockey player?
Yeah, we played. You know what? I played baseball when I was young, but we had 2 months of baseball in back home. So, but the thing we did in baseball in Rouen, Arenda, it was two city before, like it used to be. Now they're combined. Rouen, we won the Canada to go to Williamsport. So we went to Williamsport and we played in Williamsport. Me, Stéphane Matteau, and just a smaller town that we were able to win many tournaments before we got there.
Yeah.
And you're 11 years old playing in front of a crowd like 20, 25,000 people. It's crazy. Yeah. And
Cool.
literally World Series. So we had a chance to go there. We lost against Taiwan, and we finished fourth in the world. But it was an amazing experience. So I did play baseball. So I was a pitcher,
Awesome.
shortstop. I was always where it was busy. And when I was 11, I was 5'11".
All right.
So
Yeah.
I was taller than my coaching staff. I was taller than everyone. I was the tallest guy on the team. It's crazy when you think about it. But the experience of it was, so we had two months of baseball. I love playing baseball, but hockey was there's no doubt, that was just the main one. Yeah.
Well, as a hockey dad, and why I'm going to lead you into that. So now you have a son who's playing pro now, and an accomplished player. I can't remember where he was drafted, but drafted by the Wings.
Yep.
So now you're raising him. So now the shoe's on the other foot, which is exactly what I'm going through right now with a 13-year-old and a 12-year-old and a 10-year-old, and all want to be NHLers themselves. And how did you balance that as far as maybe the concern about maybe doing too much when it comes to like on ice and just staying on the ice all the time, and also balancing, the idea of maybe being an athlete and keeping the kid off the ice and having him be exposed to different things? Like, what was your approach when it came to the development of your hockey? I know your daughter was a hockey player too, actually. So
yeah,
we shouldn't forget about that at all.
Yeah.
But so you had two hockey players there.
So I had three hockey players. So
three?
we had three. So we had four children, and we lost one in a car accident when she was 10 years ago. So but she played hockey. So when I stopped playing hockey, I coached my daughter, my oldest one, and then she was a twin. The other one played volleyball. So one volleyball and the other one three hockey. So I was involved in coaching them. I always love driving on positive reinforcement. That's me. I don't like, if I say something, I might say, I need more from you. You just got to come out with that battle and put your shoulder down. Don't come back with your shoulder. Stay down and stay on it. Don't stop, because all of a sudden it comes out, you're ready to get that puck back. If it's little life that you can get that puck, then it's there. You drop your shoulder, stay on. Anyway. Ideas just to reinforce, and then if she did something good, or if my kid did something good, they came back on the bench and said, great job, this is what I'm talking about, do it again. All of a sudden you feel like you're on top of the world and you want to do it again. To me, positive reinforcement is a big deal. So I really focus on that. I coach even now. I still talk to the girls or some of the guys that I coach. They still talk. They still call. They're still involved with my son. They're still involved with the kids. So I see them all the time. So, and it was a great. I love that part. To part to make a difference. Start beginning of the year up to Christmas. See a different the involvement, and from middle of Christmas up to the end of the year, it's all about because it's not about me, about the kids. So we want them just to have fun, but they improve and they get pushed where it's uncomfortable. So if they have a skate, I'm going to make sure it's all conditioning. It's not about punishment ever. Let's focus on skating. It's about conditioning. Let's have fun. Let's do 3 laps around. We'll do it 3 times. Let's do it under 40 seconds. Make it fun.
Yeah.
Now they want to make it under 45 and they want to make it under 40 because they want to beat it. Like then that's fun. They're having fun, but they're getting their conditioning. So for me, I always been kind of Al Arbor. He was always like that. So I just want to give back what I learned from him that's why they love having me as a coach, because I was just not negative, not hard on them, not more than other ones. I was just treating them the same. And so it was fun. I love that experience. I love the experience.
Did you have a hard time with the idea of like, because now at the youth level, and geez, I see kids that are 9 years old that legitimately don't take their skates off because there's always something to go to, right? There's a camp or there's a summer team or a tournament here or whatever, and for families that have the means to do it, some people do it, and I try not to be judgy about it. I think everyone has their own philosophies, and that's totally fine. But I do think it's interesting to have a conversation. Did you have, like, what was your philosophy with your son? Because obviously you probably could have gone to whatever tournament you would have wanted to go to, and you probably could have, got him where he needed to be. Did you ever have to pull the reins in on him and say, hey, don't go? Or
well, no, I always say, what do you want to do? First of all, do you want to do it? You got to want to do it. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. So I always went with the way they were feeling, obviously, and it's always been, sometimes they didn't do it as much in the summer. We used to go back in Canada, spend 2 months, and they had the hockey school a couple of weeks there, but they had more than 2 weeks off. They did. They had 2 weeks off there. They played hockey in the hockey school. They had another 2 weeks, and then they went back again. So maybe a month and a half off sometime. Yeah. And if they want to do a different sport, then just go play tennis or go play. So have fun with it. And then so it's been. I think it's today. All depends what age are you at. Like if you're closer to what you want to achieve, then you might want to put more commitment in it. So, but if you're 8, 9, 10, you gotta have fun too. You gotta enjoy it. If you want to do something else, then you do something else. So I think they need to feel like they're making that decision. I think.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, I've had to. My kids are like hockey crazy, and so they're like mad at me. Like it'll be July, or let's even say June, right? We finished the season, we've done a spring season, and now it's like, okay, we're done. It's May. Like you're putting the skates away until August, right? I said, I told you their ages. They're pretty young, and it'll be June, middle of June or July, and they're like mad at me because they can't go skate, and so I have that. I mean, I wrestle with that, right? Because I have been pretty staunch in my thing of like, no, it's good to stay away. Like one, I think it's good for your body. Two, I think it's good for your game mentally. And I do think it helps even with that passion that we're talking about, like the ability for them not to go on, like fuels them even more when they can go on and they're more grateful, right? So I don't know. I mean, we're all trying to do the best we can for our kids. But at this age, I know that it's going to get serious quick enough. It's not so serious now that they have to be out there all the time. And I actually think it helps their development more to keep them back a little bit, to let them grow, to let their bodies grow. I don't
disagree with that. Yeah, I don't disagree. And I think, what, sometimes you don't realize as a kid, like you do it in the summer, you do August, you do September, but you got to think about when you're going to be in January. Well, how are you going to feel? Are you going to go, is it too much hockey? Is it going to be, because you might be okay in the summer, but long season, is it going to affect you? Or maybe you have that month off or a month and a half off. When you get to January, you still have that fuel in you that, okay, I'm going to keep going. You know what I mean? So this is where you gotta, everyone's different, but we're trying to do the best to guide them at the same time, but it's hard for them to realize it. But yeah, I agree with you. Sometimes you need a break. That breaks puts more. It gives you more fire,
Yeah,
fire
more
for
fuel
sure.
in your
This
tank, right?
season, 100%.
Well,
Yeah.
you've been an amazing guy. I'm gonna. I mean, I don't know if I should end with this because I think it's such a cool distinction, but it's also there's a little bit of a negativity around it. I'd love to hear your opinion. I just read this morning, and that's with the
Yeah.
Hall of Fame scenario. So
Yeah.
I read the thing that you have the most points in NHL history to not be in the Hall of Fame. Like
Mhm.
what a interesting, weird, strange, kind of honorable title in some ways to have. Is that like where does that sit with you? Like I don't know. I
It's
mean, you
fine.
distinguished career, 1,300 games, over a point a game, 500 goals, all these. I mean, a Lady Byng Trophy and 5 All-Stars, and obviously there'd be a lot of people on the fence that are saying you should be in. Obviously, there's some people that think that maybe you're not quite there. Like, where does
Mhm.
that sit with
Yeah.
Pierre Turgeon, the guy who's now out of hockey, looks back in his career and knows that?
I Yeah, well, thanks for asking that question. But at the end of the day, I just, for me, I don't look far. I was blessed to do something I love. I always say this. I mean, I played hockey and they paid me to do it. That's crazy, you know. So for me, yeah, and I'm grateful for that, you know. So it would be the icing on the cake. It would be so if it does happen one day. But I'm so grateful for my career that I was able to do something I love, the game, and I still love the game. I think it's the best game ever. But it's just, yeah. And then I made a living out of it. You know, it's crazy. And you meet good people through it. You know, and I mean, like I said earlier, we had that conversation. The people you meet through hockey is incredible. It's a small world, and it's a great world to be a part of. And I'm thankful for that. So.
So, like, if I'm hearing it, it'd just be almost another level of gratitude to the game that sort of treated you so well. I mean, like you're in such
Yeah.
an exclusive club in so many ways, right? A first overall pick that not many people can say in over 1,000 games in the NHL, or I mean, almost 1,200, which is such a small
Hmm.
group, right? 500 goals is such a small group. Like you're in all these little unique clubs, and obviously, I guess an invitation into the most exclusive club in the game would be the cherry on top. But
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, hey, I'm so grateful for the game, 100%.
right.
Yeah,
Well, you were gracious enough to get on with me, Pierre. We never played with each other, and we don't know each other
yeah,
super well. But you were nice enough to come on my podcast. I know your words of wisdom here are going to benefit some of my listeners and the
it's
youth
awesome.
growing up. So I really appreciate you spending the time with me here today. And I'll let you go and get back to it's probably a pickup game you got started up here right away.
Tomorrow. But thanks for having me. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being my guest for 101, and I'm sure we'll keep in touch. And thanks for doing this.
100% for sure. Thank you.
All right. That was 90 minutes, 90 awesome minutes with Pierre Turgeon. And so many great little stories there. I love the Brett Hall story. That is something that I think I'm going to turn into one of those lessons from a pro clips. If you're a podcast listener and don't get on YouTube much or don't follow me on social, there is a thing that I do, not every episode, but if there's something where I find a clip of one of my guests breaking down, whether it be a mindset topic or something, I will grab it and then I will expand on it more in the coach role, more in my mental performance coach role. And I post that on YouTube, and I also use that link to share in my email groups or on my Facebook page or Instagram. And I call it Lessons from Pro. And yeah, like that story of him learning at 27 years old how to properly take a one-timer. We're talking a 5-time NHL All-Star who learned at that point of his career that he was probably shooting the puck the wrong way. Just speaks to the ability to improve, right? It speaks to that ability to always get better if we are curious enough to go there, if we are willing to see the clues in front of us or listen to the feedback that is provided. There is a lot of things that can go wrong for us, not like a lot of things that can get in our way of us not improving. One is that continual idea of I'm new at this. What if I was looking at this for the first time? Like the curiosity factor. In Eastern wisdom, it's like new mind. beginner's mind, right? When you have a beginner's mind, every time you walk into a situation, you are going to pick up something. You are going to be in the moment. So having that ability to be curious, one, is huge. Two is to listen to feedback, right? To not think that you're above the game, not to think that you've got it all figured out, to be willing to hear from others and see if it does apply to your game. There's that level of humility, right? Like there's, no matter whether you're a AAA Pee Wee player right now who's absolutely crushing it, or whether you're a 5-time NHL All-Star like Pierre Turgeon, we should never be in a spot where we feel like we're done, right? We always got to be humble and have the humility to say, what's next? How do I get better now? Where's a spot in my game that I can improve? And that is such an interesting mindset that, well, it's not interesting, it's powerful. It's super powerful when that is the way you approach your day. That is the way you approach your craft or your relationships or whatever, your hobby, whatever it is that's important to you. And I've tried personally to build that into the foundation of who I am. How do I make this thing, this skill, or even myself as a person better? Where's the 2.0 version of what I'm doing? And when you live kind of life through those eyes with that curiosity, it becomes fun. Right? Like life becomes more fun. It becomes more engaging. It becomes more interesting. So, there, I should maybe just record this. That's kind of what a Lessons from a Pro is. Well, I will just talk about the topic, maybe break down how I do it with players and how I get them to increase their curiosity and their interest level in their own game, and why that would lead to more success. So, anyways, a fantastic conversation there with Pierre Turgeon, and an honor, quite frankly. There's not many players in the NHL that have scored over 1,300 points. I should actually look that up. There's not many at all, and to have one on the podcast, and also one that I didn't know until 7 days ago. So that's super cool that he was so, like I said, gracious and a gentleman, and willing to talk some hockey with somebody that he didn't know. Somebody who played one game for the New York Islanders at this New York Islanders alumni event. So definitely not too big for the game, not too big to talk, and obviously willing to share his wisdom and his experience. So grateful for you, Pierre, and grateful for you who are still listening now. And can't wait for what's up next here and the Up My Hockey podcast. So until next time, play hard. Keep your head up.